Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the day 3 of the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival. It's Mike Marchani again here with another excellent interview. I'm doing a live interview today with Roy Mitchell of the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice's quilting program. Roy's quilt program has been a big part of our quilt show for the last 5 years. I've had the pleasure of working together with Roy at the show. The work he does is truly inspirational. We're going to get over to a live feed with him in just a moment. We have a quick commercial break, and I'll see you in just a moment.
Welcome to A Different Touch, your local Bernina dealer in Chesapeake, Virginia. A Different Touch will be the authorized Bernina dealer servicing Bernina sewing equipment and accessories at the online Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival, February the 24th through the 27th. We're all here to answer your questions and to help you with all your sewing needs. Visit our website daily for all updates and all show specials. Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Again, I'm joined today with Roy Mitchell of the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice's quilting program. How are you doing today, Roy?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really happy to have you here. For the folks at home who don't know, you are the quilting instructor for the quilting program for the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice. Can you tell us a little bit about that program?
Well, the program started in 2012. It started at one of the facilities, which is currently closed, but the program has grown. It started out with 10 individuals in 2012, and the people at the facility when it first came on the state was looking for new programs. And they looked me up. I had taken a class actually with one of the people who work for the Department of Juvenile Justice, and then they wanted to bring in new programs. So they actually got in contact with one of the people who had published an article on me to see how to get in contact with me, and the email was routed to me, and they asked me to get in contact with the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice. And I spoke with the lady there, and she said they wanted to bring in new programs and wanted to see if the guys would be interested in quilting. And when you meet people and they think about a quilting program, you got to realize what type of individuals you're going to be working with, and understand we will be working with what we consider a lot of contraband. And they were optimistic about, would you allow this much contraband to come into the facility? Because as a quilter, we use rotary cutters, which is a razor blade. We use needles, scissors, etc. And those are considered weapons. But the superintendent of that facility at that time, she said, go ahead and bring it in. Mm-hmm. And when I first started the program, I had what they considered the gang members. And they were like, you have the most powerful gangs up in your classroom. And I always corrected the people and said, no, I have young men. So I never wanted to hear what they were involved in, because now we can ready to change it. And to come with, I interviewed, not so much interviewed, I went to a meeting to meet the young men. And they were like, when I was talking about, tell me somebody who's famous, or tell me about something that's different. And when I told them that I quilted, they were saying, well, my grandmother quilted. Are you going to bring this program here? And I was saying, yes, I am. And they said, I want to do it. And it was really something, because the superintendent, she had stated that you actually got these guys interested in wanting to do this. But the room was small at the time, and I could only get like 10 students in there. I had about maybe 50 students to sign up for the class, but because I'd never worked in a facility like that, so they had to go through the teams that have to evaluate them to see, what charges and stuff like that they may have. But anyway, they selected 10, and I came in. It was different to work with individuals that I had never worked with before, because now you're going to reform them from their vocabulary, using profanity. They have done violent crimes, so now you're going to expose them to certain, what we would consider weapons, but they actually what the tools we use in quilting. But they took to it. I had to, explain to them we don't use profanity. And I had a sign on the door, Michael, that stated, when you come into my classroom, leave someone outside and bring somebody in. The someone was the person that did the crime to get in the facility, but it's going to take the somebody to walk out. So when you come in, leave that person outside and bring the somebody in. And that somebody is looking for a change. They're looking to be a different person than they were when they came in. And that actually happened. There was no profanity. There was no fighting. There was no disrespect. They actually worked together. And I actually had rival gangs that did not like one another, gang members in the room, but they actually worked together. They taught each other how to do certain techniques. And one of the students used to ask me, because he looked at my hand quilt, and how many stitches do you get to the inch? And I said 22. He really practiced so hard to master me to get 23, but he got it at 22 stitches. And that young man today is actually working on designing clothing. And he was in the first program, the 2012 program at the facility. And so the program grew. And when that facility closed, we went to another facility. The program grew, and then it gave me bigger space. I was able to expand the whole classroom and stuff. But that's how the program actually got started. They were looking for new programs to bring in, and this program, they accepted this program, even though they were optimistic they weren't going to do it. Here we are in 2021 from 2012, and we are still going strong.
Very nice. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the somebody leaving the room, because that was the name of one of your exhibits. We are somebody.
Yeah.
And so to just kind of clarify for the folks at home, these gentlemen who in the program have put together a lot of quilts that we've seen on display as a special exhibit at the quilt shows. And I have a testimonial here from someone who's one of the first residents of your class, and it's really powerful stuff. I'd like to just kind of give a quote here that Mr. Mitchell's quilting class has improved my character and outlook on art. It's changed my attitude. You have to be in a somewhat peaceful, happy mood to quilt. Negativity only produces errors and negative work. Patience and efficiency has been added to my list of characteristics as well. The class has given my real job experience of manufacturers or corporations to be dedicated in your work deadlines. Quilting is a challenge for some more than others, but Mr. Mitchell has taught us numerous ways to overcome these obstacles and regain the confidence needed to meet our goals. I love art, especially artwork of mystery and artwork that depicts and takes on a story. In the quilting industry, the form of art is different in materials, but overall can be used to tell the same stories. People with eyes for color and creative mind and a captivating design can astonish the world. Therefore, I'm proud to say I'm a quilter, a young Black male quilter to be specific, end quote. And that was from one of your first residents of your quilting program.
Yes. And that is the individual that I was speaking of that's designing clothing right now.
It's some really powerful stuff, Roy, really powerful stuff. So, the program is really inspiring. I've heard, obviously you've had a great deal amount of success with your students, but you've actually recently won an award. Is that right?
Yes. I won an award. I won it from the REB Foundation. And the REB Foundation is a program that recognizes local educators for their leadership skills, but making a difference in the lives of our students and inspiring the students to be more creative. The award is presented to educators who are known to be excellent in their fields. And it was 109 people were nominated for this award. And then they had to narrow it down to 31 finalists. I was notified that I was one of the 31 finalists. Then after the 31 finalists, they set up an interview, and you had a panel to ask you about the program, what would your students take from the program? Why is your program successful? Why did the students want to learn? And then from there, they had to narrow it down from 31 to 18. So from 109 down to 18, I was one of the 31 finalists, and I was also one of the winners, one of the 18 winners. So I was one out of the 18. So that was a big accomplishment for what I do, and to be nominated and be able to win that award.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say that it seems very well deserved. You know, I've had, everyone who works at the Quilt Show has had the pleasure of meeting some of these young men. And obviously the thousands of attendees have had the pleasure of looking at their artwork and, seeing how, you've inspired them and, kind of driven them. You've been coming to the Quilt Show for just about as long as I have. And I remember our first phone call was right after it. And this was, right around the time that I started working there. So it was actually one of the first phone calls I ever took. And I was like, I remember telling, Mr. Mancuso, like, oh, there's a guy here from the, Virginia Juvenile, justice system. He wants to have some quilts on display. And then, ever since, I feel like I'm always the one helping you, put up the quilts. So, I always get like a firsthand look at some of their work. What does it mean for these kids to see their art on display at the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival?
It means a lot for them, one, to be able to come outside the facility and to get them prepared. And just to back up, is a lot that goes into this right here, because I don't just teach quilting, I teach them about grooming, etiquette, all like that. So when we go out to the public, but for them to be able to come to the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival, Mr. Mancuso, you and the whole staff from the Mid-Atlantic Festival treat us wonderfully. And especially the young men, because that's my goal, is for them to be able to go into a facility, an exhibit, and people look at them as somebody and not look at them as where they have come from, because people know where they have come from. But now that we have been coming every year, people look forward to seeing them. They look forward to seeing them. They look forward to seeing their quilts. And to back up on what you said, I remember when I talked to you and you said, do you have any of their quilts? Because you really want to see their quilts. Can you send me some samples of their work? And I sent the actual samples of their work, and you said, okay, we good. So we good. So that was the thing, like, okay, I got to see these quilts because I know this is a big show and you have, a lot of talent at the exhibit that we come to. So for those young men to be able to come out there to meet you, to meet Mr. Mancuso, and to have him to take out of his busy schedule, because he has a busy schedule. But when we arrive there, he always has taken these young men around and shown them the quilts that have on exhibit, and to explain what how they did a certain stitch, or what this quilt was best to show, why it was selected best to show this. And he has taken that time with them, and that really makes them feel good to know that somebody cares. And that's what they all tell me. They said, people don't look at us where we from. I said, because when you walk like somebody, you talk like somebody, you are somebody. So they look at you as somebody. And they look forward to it. Plus, they get to see the different artwork, because they only get to see mine and see theirs. But when they can be exposed to see other people's work, it really makes them want to challenge themselves more, because they have looked at stuff and they have come back and said, I need to do this because I know how this person did this. And then I'm like, okay, go ahead. So they be, taking notes in their minds and, bits and pieces that you might remember and I might remember, and they get back and they want to implement that. But the coming to that exhibit, that is priceless for them. It is priceless. And the time that he dedicates to them and taking them around, and they go into the different vendors' booths and people say, oh, here the guys are, here the young men. And, and we get a lot of accolades from there, but we also get a lot of gifts from all the vendors that want to support the program. So we come out with fabric and a lot of notions, etc. But it's a blessing for them to be able to be exposed to that. And they look forward to it, and they pass that word on to other people and say, when you get in this class, Mr. Mitchell will take you to this show and you got to see it, because they're really excited and they talk about the work that they have seen. but they also talk about how people admire their work and how they really can't get around to the show as much as they want, because as soon as they go on one side of the Coliseum, somebody says, "Oh, are you all the ones that did the quilt?" They got to go back because that people want to hear them, their testimonies about why they created the quilt, but what inspired them. And the people are really enthusiastic about how they did this, especially being young men. And especially, and then where they come from, that you actually took this time to do this, because we all know quilting is not a rush job.
Absolutely.
This is a lot of patience, and you got to have dedication. And I tell people all the time, quilting is not in the brain, it's in the heart. So when you feel it in the heart, you can create it. So they are really excited about being there.
Yeah, of course. And we're always happy to have them. I mean, usually at Quilt Show, I like to think I dress up real nice. But every time they show up, they're always outdoing me. Everybody looks, super fresh, super clean. Speaking of challenges, I want to take you down memory lane and talk about that one quilt. You remember that one quilt that was like 20, 30 feet long? That one kid put together, we had to get rid of a whole wing so it could span like 2 booths.
I know. I remember when you saw that, you said, "Roy, how big is this quilt?" And I said, "Oh," you said, "Well, we put it in one place. It was too big." You said, "We got to move this." So we just you had to break down a whole section and say, "This quilt is humongous." That young man always made humongous quilts.
Oh, yeah, right.
That quilt would have probably been bigger than that, but I had to keep telling him, it will not go on this long arm machine. I don't know how we would do it. So he had to stop. He had to actually stop it, but he was so in tune to that quilt. And that young man could cut that fabric. And I guarantee you, that whole quilt that he did, that big, humongous quilt, about 12 feet wide, I bet you he did not have a small trash can full of scraps. I don't know how he cut it, but he cut every square up and he pieced everything. He was a perfectionist when it came to that right there. He was an awesome quilter, that young man was. And everybody has admired that pyramid quilt, that triangle looking, because it looked like you could step up inside of it, and when I look at the pictures of it myself, I'm like, wow, to be able to say I know who did this, and I was there as he was creating something so tangible, it was very small, and then I'm just watching it grow where I got to say stop. We got to stop it. But yes, that was the quilt.
It just goes to show that, obviously a lot of these young men just have untapped, talent and potential, and just need like a chance, like a way of just expressing themselves. And that's like one of the great things about the programs, that you see all this beautiful artwork come out that otherwise, the world may not have seen. So obviously we've got pictures of the of your quilt exhibit on display, but I wanted to talk about the one quilt in particular, the one that you were talking about is the governor's quilt. Can you tell the folks at home a little bit about that?
The governor's quilt was, we wanted to, and I say we because myself and the student wanted to commemorate the governors of Virginia. So we sat down and we all came up with, like, I'm the mediator, so actually I want them to actually come up with the idea. I come up with the idea, and then they have to start implementing. How would we do this? That governor's quilt took us almost a year to make. That quilt, I think that quilt is probably 14 feet long and probably about 10 or 12 feet wide. And it was maybe about 15 students, I think, in the class at that time that actually worked on that quilt, because they did we had the fabric that looked like tree branches. And then actually those dogwood, because Virginia, the tree is the dogwood tree. Cardinal, yeah, that's the reason, that's a dogwood tree, the cardinal bird. And we just put the butterfly in the tree just to give it a little bit of more accent. But if you could ever see that quilt, those dogwood leaves are 3D. So if you was to turn a fan on, those leaves would actually move.
Oh, so very cool.
Yeah, they would actually move. So each one of those were placed on that tree. And then one of the previous students, he did the hound dog, because the hound dog is a symbol for the state of Virginia. And then we actually had that is a real license tag that one of the students knew somebody who could get that tag made for this quilt. And that actual license plate that's on that quilt is actually a real one.
Okay. Wow.
It's a real license plate. And then we actually, when that quilt was actually done, we had the long arm machines, but we did not have the one that was computerized. So that quilt was actually hand guided. So several young men worked on it. They did hand guiding on that one right there because we did, like I said, we did not have the computerized one at that time. So he did the hand glided one, and we sewed the binding down. It was like 2 people on each side. So it was like 8 of us working on that binding at one time. So we had to do that, and we did it all day, just sewing, because like I said, that quilt was like 14 feet long and then going across 10. So 2 people was on each side of it. So it was 8 of us working on that quilt at the same time. But it turned out nice, and they presented it to the previous governor of Virginia, Governor Terry McCullough, and his wife.
Mhm.
They went to the governor's mansion and presented that quilt to them. And when you see them standing in front of that quilt, that's where they were actually, I don't know if that picture was for the governor's mansion because they had on red sweaters. But anyway, that was some of the guys that actually went to the governor's mansion and they presented it. They did a complete program for that quilt right there to be dedicated. And on the back of the quilt, it has a list of all the governors of Virginia, from the very first one to the current one at that time, which was Governor McCullough. And
Wow.
then the students' names are on the back of the quilt.
Very
Because that way I told them in years to come, if you say you made this quilt, somebody might question it and you can say flip it over and your
That's
name
right.
on the back of that quilt to show that you did work on this quilt and you were there when it was given to the governor and his wife.
Yeah, that's right. History written in fabric. And you were talking about the hand stitching. That's no easy feat. I mean, even I know that. I'm not an experienced quilter by any stretch, but I know hand stitching is requires like some real talent there. So obviously, what they put together was very special. So we've got, like I said, we got a couple pictures from the exhibit, the yesterday exhibit. And of course, people can check that out by going to the website, onlinequiltfest.com. Tell everybody at home, what is yesterday about?
Yesterday, because of the pandemic, I was not able to actually work with my students for the past year to be able to create new quilts. Therefore, we went back to yesterday, to the beginning of the program. And with the beginning of the program, we only had the domestic sewing machine. We did not have the embroidery machine. We did not have the long arm machines.
Mm-hmm.
The quilt that small and is black and white and it's got like teal going around. The students were learning how to, that was actually a learning piece. Each person had to make a 9 patch and they all put their 9 patches on that wall hanging. But and I'm going to say this about it. I have shown that wall hanging at some exhibits and my previous students have come there and they were able to identify where their 9 patch was. Because they knew where they put it at when they put that quilt together. So when they put that together, that beginning is called the beginning because that was the first piece. That was where they learned how to actually sew down a binding and then put it down by hand to try to get the mitered corners and all like that. That was the beginning. And then the other quilts were previous quilts that have been done from 2012 and bringing us to our current. So yesterday is all about what we did yesterday, the beginning of the program, from where it has grown and from the techniques that they didn't know and they were working on. And now you can see how they have perfected it as we have come along from 2012 to now. So that's what yesterday is about, yesterday.
Yeah, it's quite the journey, obviously. Before we conclude this here, Roy, I'm sure there's some folks at home who are wondering, tell us about that quilt in the background there.
Oh, the quilt in the background is one that I made. I made this probably a year ago to represent Black History Month. All the fabric on this quilt right here is from West Africa, Ghana, from Accra. And I actually did this quilt one day. My students said they want to see me sew because I'm always teaching. So I actually made, this is a king size. I actually did this quilt top in one day, one class, you know, so because I'm sew all day long. And I was able to do that. But I think you see the background, or you can't see that it's good. But the stitching in here was actually done on the a long arm machine, the computerized one, and I've got circles all in here and everything like that. And then the binding is hand sewn because we don't do machine bindings. We sew the initial part down and then we have to actually do it all by hand. And I did this one. I think I might have had the students to help me put the binding down on this right here. So, and they are always excited if they say, if you can work on one of Mr. Mitchell's quilts, you got to really be good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's what they did. And several of them did help me work on this right here. And they were excited to be able to say they worked on a piece of one of my pieces right here. But this quilt has traveled to several places and is back home now. So I decided, let me hang my quilt up behind me today.
Perfect. Well, we're happy to see it. Obviously, we're really happy to have you here. You know, I understand that there's probably a lot of people involved in your program that help make it possible. Is there anyone that you want to mention, say thank you, or give a shout out to?
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for blessing me and giving me the talent that I have, and to be able to follow a dream and a vision of mine, to be able to teach the world and to help those who don't believe in themselves to believe, learn that you can believe in yourself. I want to also thank my family for giving me the opportunity to follow my dream and giving me the time to take away and to do stuff and supporting me while I was doing what I needed to do. My mentor is the late Mrs. Viola Virginia Williams Kennedy, who asked me to keep this alive. And I did not know what she meant. She says, you need to keep this alive, and to give acknowledgement to her because of the fact it is alive. And it's the students that I teach that really keep it alive. I want to thank her for that right there. And also the beginning students, the ones that people didn't believe were going to do this. Those students proved that it was more to them than what they came in the facility, how they came inside the facility. But those beginning students are the ones that laid the foundation for this program. I want to thank the previous students, the beginning students, the previous students, the current students. I want to thank all of them because without them, none of this would have been possible because they believed in me in order for this program to be successful. I want to also thank the directors, our previous director, Mr. Andy Block of the Department of Juvenile Justice, our current director, Ms. Valerie Borkin, for supporting the program, and the operations staff of the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice, because people see only me, but it's a whole team of people that have to get everything coordinated to actually get these young men outside of that facility. So it takes a lot, but we have a lot of support with that and getting everything done. And also the quilt guilds that have donated so much fabric and notions and everything and want to support the program and to support the young men that are there to make sure that we have everything that we need to keep our goals and dreams and visions, you know, going strong.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and of course, you know, we at Quilt Show Management want to thank you, Roy, for all the great hard work you've put in to, you know, inspire these young men and kind of, you know, get them to see a different light of things. You know, it's a tough world out there, but you know, obviously the work that you guys have created over the years is truly inspiring. It's lit up the Quilt Show for many years, and you know, we hope to see more work from them over the years because it's you know, it's one of our crown jewels of the show. Roy, anything else you'd like to say to the folks at home?
The folks at home, I want to say if they want to get in contact with me, they can reach me at Watermelon Man, and that's spelled WATERMELUNMAN01 at AOL.com. And to let them know the best is yet to come. But as I always tell my students, nothing in life is perfect, not even a quilt, but strive for perfection.
Absolutely, absolutely. Roy, thank you so much for taking the time to sit here and you know, talk about the program with us. You know, we're really happy to have you as part of the Quilt Festival, and once we get through all of this, we're really looking forward to seeing some more quilts from the young men in the program.
Well, yep, we look forward to being there. So we hopefully to see you in 2022.
Sounds like a plan. I hope to see you then.
All right, my pleasure, Michael.
Yeah, of course. And for everyone at home who's just joining us, be sure to support the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice Quilting Program. You can see all the quilts that they have to offer at the in the special exhibit program at www.onlinequiltfest.com. It's a great program. It's changing people's lives, and it's changing the art form by which we all know. So any support you can give them would be appreciated. And of course, thank you so much for your support of the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival. I think we have we got a fashion show coming up tonight for the registrants. So if you pre-register for the show, you'll be able to attend the fashion show. And we've got a whole lineup of great programs for you all tomorrow. I want to thank Roy for joining us, and we want to thank all the young men for their great artwork. This is Mike Marchani signing off for tonight.